Hello, I'm Jasmine. I want to talk to you a little bit about birdsplaining. I'm going to do a short reading. And thinking about what to read for this video, I was realizing a year and a half on from publication, or more than a year and a half on from publication, how the book looks different to me from the book that I sent, the final text that I sent and the final text that I read when I first had the printed copy in my hand back in January 2023. There've been a lot of responses to the book since then, and how people have responded has made me see the book differently. There are things that have resonated for people that I wasn't necessarily even aware were in the book, or that didn't seem particularly significant, but that have been important to people who've read it. One of the things I think that people seem to have really appreciated is the mode of uncertainty of the book. The whole book is kind of an inquiry. It's a weighing up of, what do I know? How do I know it? How can I know it? How do I respond to other people's knowledge and expertise? I mean, birdsplaining, the title, obviously it's a humorous take on mansplaining, but it's also, as I explain in the opening piece, it's also a way of looking at the world through birds. And one of my favorite responses, I think, to the book, one of my favorite reviews, is a 1-star review on Goodreads, which was actually a disappointed reader. So I mean, in some way, it's not fair of me to find it such a delightful review, but I do, because it encapsulates something for me. And it reads, "It's not about birds, feminist claptrap in essay form." And that, for me, sums up the book in a new way that I hadn't really realized, and so I'm very appreciative of that review. But there is an expectation that it is about birds, that I'm presenting an expertise about birds or information about birds. I'm not. I'm exploring questions, ideas through birds, sometimes not through birds, sometimes through other aspects of the living world. So yes, it's a book about how, I guess it's a book exploring uncertainty, and in a way it feels more important than ever to be uncertain in an inquiring kind of way. Uncertainty seems to me a really strong counterpoint to ideology. Not that ideology is certainty, but that you hold on to ideas, you hold on to a point of view with an ideological framework, and I feel more and more we need to be able to be unsure, to sort of sit in those uncertain places and question and weigh up and explore, because how are we going to understand one another or ourselves if we simply hold on to our certainties? So on that note, I'm going to read a short passage from the 4th piece in this book, called Boggy Ground. And I think it gives a flavour of my approach. It's 6:30 in the morning at Corskaron, early in the spring, and I hope I might see an otter or hear newly arrived warblers. Here the Tavy is still a narrow river running through peat bog, not many miles from its source. It has a long way to go before it reaches the Irish Sea at Abertavy, but in spate it's already forceful. Corskaron, a network of bog and waterways, of rough pasturage and drained field, serves as the river's floodplain. There are horses grazing in the reserve and farms all around its edges, but its wildlife is rich and diverse. A pair of goosanders lift from the river and take off upstream, and then a pair of mallards splatter off after them. I wonder if the goosanders are mergansers. I can never remember which of the two is coastal, which inland. A single pale buzzard skims low and suggestively, as though it could be a female hen harrier. I want it to be a harrier, but they've gone back north after the winter. It's early and still, and I need the toilet. I've come out before breakfast, and now the detritus from yesterday's meals is pressing upon me heavily and beginning to take up my attention. On the far bank of the river, hidden in pale tussocky grass, A small bird begins to call quietly with a single repeated note. I've no idea what it is. I can't be bothered to stop and wait to see if it will show itself, flying from one perch to another. Further on, a reed bunting is calling, its white collar and black head visible above the reeds. I decide the first bird was a reed bunting too. I decide every small streaky thing I see is a reed bunting, unless it's a pipit or a lark. The larks are just beginning. They launch themselves from me and climb away into the overcast early morning sky and begin singing madly, as if the danger with which I present them has been a trigger. If it was summer and the lark song was falling from a deep blue sky, all the romance of association might kick in, the detritus of literary ideas about larks. But it's cool and still and grey, as if waiting, and the larks are not an exultant wild, but merely background noise to my increasingly pressing bodily need. Soon I'm paying little attention to the buntings or larks on the ground or in brief low flight. I'm no longer interested in the irritation of identification. I can hardly tell a pipit from a bunting. The urgency of finding a toilet is becoming so great. My intestines press insistently upon my consciousness, and I no longer care that I found the buzzard's feeding site. There are streaks of dark blood and small gobbets on the path marker post, white splashes where the buzzard has lifted its tail and squirted mutes, that falconer's word for hawkshit, which I know from T.H. White's The Goshawk, or possibly his Once and Future King. I think of Robin Williams's mad character on his quest for the Holy Grail in The Fisher King, of the scene in which he recounts his moment of revelation while having one of those mystical shits, and I wonder what mystical experience lies ahead for me. So I hope you enjoy birdsplaining, and thank you for listening.